But in the foothills of the Sunshine Coast, they have the Yowie. Alleged sightings of the mythical creatures date back to the late 1800s.
Do you believe in Yowies?
Yes.
Well, look, there's a lot of skeptics out there, but I'm telling you, they're real. I've seen them. I've seen a mother and a father and two juveniles. The father was about 9 foot, the mother was about 8 foot, and the two juveniles were about 5 foot. I could smell him before I could see him, and it smelt like burning wire.
I didn't think it was trying to scare me, but it wanted my attention. I don't understand why it wanted my attention or what was going on, but at first I thought, wow, cool, I've just seen a Yowie, and I was excited, but then the fear set in.
The Yowie story took hold in December 1979 when two students from Brisbane had an encounter while camping in nearby bushland. They were confronted with a huge 2 or 3 metre brown-haired creature.
Deep in the Gold Coast hinterland, a chance encounter these Yowie hunters insist is the breakthrough they've been searching for.
Randomly panning around, and there you have it. 2 of them. We were ecstatic. I mean, this was probably the best footage so far in Australia.
Buck and Dean say those blobs aren't human, but creatures 9 feet tall.
Seen something that they can't work out what it is, and it's hairy and it's standing on 2 legs, and it's in the bush, in the Australian bush.
I really didn't have much to sort of think about it until my incident, but that converted me. I wasn't a real believer. I've heard stories. Until I had my incident, I really didn't think too much of it. But now I'm 100% believer.
Australia's own CJ Dennis may well have offered similar advice to those taking part in the current Queanbeyan quest for a Yowie. Few people are fortunate to be able to claim an encounter with Australia's answer to a Yeti or a Bigfoot.
I've lived in Caboolture for 30 odd years. I used to do builder cleans and started doing Yowie research in 2019. After I recorded, went to Delatcha, I recorded voices in a tunnel. As we were doing it, rocks started coming down. I thought I captured ghosts, and everyone else said, no, that's Yowies, and that's how I sort of got into Yowie research. What do I know? They're friendly. They're very intelligent. They like to watch what you do, and you don't find them, they will find you. They have a specific smells, depending if they're the large variety or the small one. The larger ones smell like decaying dead animals, they're pretty putrid, where the small ones are a sweet, deathly type of smell. Yeah, what experiences have we had with Yowies? I've caught several on video before. Generally they slip away in the bush. The first, I'm trying to think, the first time they threw a rock at us, I stood there and said, do it again, and they threw a rock at us. This was after they followed us for, I don't know, a good couple of kilometres through the bush. We could hear the trees breaking, the crunches, the ground thumps. And after that, we started leaving them gifts, and they started leaving me gifts.
Right, so my name's Daniel.
My name's Justin.
We're part of a paranormal team, well, we're the founders of Paravision Paranormal. Yeah, we formed about 5 years ago now.
4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago. Predominantly, we investigate spirits, ghosts, human, non-human entities, things like that. So basically, yeah, we're just sort of like your traditional paranormal team. We're not technically into cryptids or anything like that, but the experience that we had at this location has really sparked our interest, sort of, and then we've sort of developed it from there. Yeah. Well, Justin, because he's from America, like you said, he thinks of him as Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
So Obviously, Yowies are like the Australian version. There's been stories. I mean, I kind of looked into it after we had our experience here. You know, there's been stories from way back with the First Nations people about these creatures, and all I know is that they're very elusive because we have looked for evidence for them in this location. We have found evidence of them in this location, but it's the first time I've ever had an experience. I've done heaps of camping and stuff, and you know, going out country and bush, and yeah, no, I've never had any other experience other than what I had at this location.
I really didn't have much to sort of think about it until my incident, but that converted me. Like, I wasn't a real believer. I've heard stories from different people, and my uncle that lives up there where I got my farm, and you know, the Aboriginal sort of Dreamtime stories and stuff. But yeah, until I had my incident, I really didn't think too much of it. But now I'm 100% believer. I was missing 3 hunting dogs. I go pigging, and I was missing 3 dogs at the time. And so I went down the middle of the night, down in between the boundary of my place and my neighbour's property. It was probably, you know, middle of the night, midnight, something, clear as, perfectly still, because I whistle out, yell out, and, you know, the dogs you can hear for a long distance, sound travels. So I'm sitting there on the quad bike, whistling, yelling out, just listening, and out of the corner of my eye, I can see a tree, it's shaking, like side to side like this. And I look at it a bit confused, thinking, what the hell? Because there was no wind or anything. The tree's just shaking. And then I looked beside it, and then it was standing right beside it. And it was only just flicking its wrist. It wasn't even moving its arm, and it was shaking this tree. The tree was hitting the ground on one side, then hitting the ground on the other side, just bam, 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 bam. And it's just staring at me, just eyeballing me eye to eye. And it was a slash paddock, like, you know, inch-long grass. So there wasn't a single thing blocking my vision. It wanted to be seen. Obviously, it was shaking a tree to get my attention, and it felt like a long time, but it probably wasn't very long. We were eyeball to eyeball, and then it just took off, bang, like in lightning fast. And as it's running, I couldn't see it, but I could see the trees it was hitting just falling over, psh, 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 and it started to circle back around. Like, it took off a fair way, and then it started to circle back around towards me, and I just took off. Then I was on a quad bike. I had a gun with me, a loaded weapon. And I felt completely inferior to it. I wasn't even going to attempt to shoot it. I took off that fast. I've never ridden the quad bike that fast in my life. Things are flying off the bike, and I never looked back. I didn't go back there for a couple of months.
Right, where do I start? Okay, so we came to this location to do a paranormal investigation.
On Halloween, on Friday the 13th, and it was a blue moon.
Yeah, all of those things.
In one time.
In one time. And Justin was doing a sensory deprivation experiment. So he was basically had some earphones on, had a blindfold on. He had earphones, were playing through a machine we call a spirit box, and
I can't hear anything else except for the earphones, and I can't see anything.
And basically, I'll ask questions. I'll be sort of in the room asking questions, and then what the idea is that we're hoping to get replies to those questions through the spirit box, but he doesn't know what I'm saying, so he's all desensitized. So he's listening to the white noise on the spirit box and repeating what he hears from that, and we try to capture voices that sort of coincide with the questions I'm asking. We're probably about...
That was only for a while.
Yeah, probably about a half, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes in to doing the sensory deprivation experiment. I'm asking a question, and then all of a sudden I hear this almighty something running down the side of this building. And this is not a small building, this is a mess hall. It's probably about 30 metres long, and it literally ran down the side of this building in like a second or so. Right, it was crashing through the bushes. It was like I could hear the sticks breaking and stuff breaking, and it was bipedal. Like, it didn't sound like jumping like from a kangaroo. You can hear a kangaroo when it jumps. This thing was do 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 do.
Because I actually thought you were running, because I could feel the
so Justin,
the floorboards vibrating.
Yeah, so Justin said he could actually feel it through the floor while he was sitting there. That freaked me out. So I'm sort of sitting there going, what in the hell was that? Like, I didn't see anything, but I could hear it. And it was just down this side. I was actually not far from the windows. And so I started asking questions on the spirit box to see if he would get something come through. on the spirit box, you know, to maybe answer what that might have been. Nothing was really coming through. And maybe about 10, 15 minutes after that happened, over on this side of the buildings, so all the vegetation behind us, I could hear what sounded like timber being pulled apart, like, you know, bark being pulled off of trees or branches being pulled off of trees. And it's not the snapping, it was like, you know, the sound that you get when something's actually getting pulled apart, timber. And that's what freaked me out. I actually went, oh, wow.
Because that's the first time and the only time you actually tapped me out, and you were scared.
Yeah, I don't get scared much. You know, in the thing of what we do, we walk into the dark. I don't get scared by very much. But whatever this was physical. So this was like, you could feel it, you could hear it. You know, the stuff was breaking behind us. The timber, you know, this was physical. So this wasn't like ghosts and stuff.
Because I think as we were walking out, to me it sounded like 2x4s snapping in half.
Yeah, it was really weird. Like, I've never experienced anything like that. And that's when I tapped him on the shoulder and said, all right, experiment over. We're done. We're going to get out of here. There's something not right here. Something's not right. All right, so it was kind of like the strangest feeling. And as we were leaving, in the direction, over in this direction over here, I could see something move behind a tree, and I went, okay, we're not going that way. So we took another route, which is another path that runs down this way. And as we got to the street, to the actual main pathway that leads us back out to the car park where our cars are parked, I could hear what sounded like a growling, or, you know, like dog growling, howling type sounds, but it was like really weird. It was like guttural, and it had like a gurgle to it. And Justin could hear what sounded like a woman
moaning or groaning.
Yeah, so, you know, it was really, really strange sounds, and they were all behind us. And
you could almost hear footsteps, or
it
seemed like you could.
Yeah, like, you know, it was just like we were walking down, and it felt like they were following us. It was coming behind us. We can still keep hearing it as we're walking down the path. And
because then it sort of went into the bushes beside us.
Yeah, and then I had my camera going. I actually filmed the whole experience. So I actually got the running down the building. You can't hear the timbers breaking in the audio, unfortunately. My audio is not that crash hot, but you can hear the running down the building. But as I was walking down the path, I had my camera still going. I wasn't sitting there filming or anything. I just was holding it, and it was pointing in directly in front of us. And then when I reviewed the footage, I could see two eyes looking at us, and all of a sudden it sort of just turns away, like it turns away and walks off type thing. And that was in a set of trees just before a bend on the way to the car park, about halfway down the track. So that was our experience. Since then, you know, we've asked people that have had experience with Yowies and stuff to come out to this location with us to find evidence of Yowies. Then we found a footprint, we found some timber structures, and things like that, you know, general smells. We've had a couple of experiences where we've had physically the same running that I experienced down the side of this building actually happen in front of us, and
That's when you dove into the bush after it. And
yeah, I actually ran after it.
Crashing around right beside you, but there was nothing on the thermal.
Yeah, and we had a thermal camera with us, and nothing was showing up on the thermal. There was nothing. So you could actually hear it running through the bush. So,
and
yeah.
Like I sent you that video, if you put your hand down and move it, you can see your handprint.
Yeah, so it's
step on nothing.
Nothing.
I didn't think it was trying to scare me, but it wanted my attention. I don't understand why it wanted my attention or what was going on. But at first I thought, wow, cool, I've just seen a yowie and I was excited. But then the fear set in, especially when it started circling back around. Like, I honestly, because I'm not scared of much at all. I go up to the bush in the middle of the night by myself, hunting pigs and, you know, that sort of stuff. But I was scared, the most scared I've ever been in my life. I felt like I was going to be a snack. Yeah, a lot of people sort of keep a bit quiet about their stories. They don't want to seem, you know, crazy. Until I tell them my story, they don't really open up. 12 to 18 months ago, I was on my driveway, and same thing, middle of the night, on the quad bike, and I could hear something throwing big boulders down the creek. And there's no machinery, there's nothing, the water wasn't flowing enough to move these boulders, and big boulders just randomly being thrown into the creek, way bigger than anything a human could pick up. And I lost, when at that time of my incident, I lost 6 dogs in 6 months, just vanished from my property.
Yeah, do I think they're aggressive? I think that depends on the person and their intentions. If you go out there armed with baseball bats and firearms, or you see one and you pursue it, they're either going to evade you, or they're going to be aggressive towards you. But if you go out there with good intentions, I don't think they're aggressive at all. We've never had an encounter, not once, where we've encountered an aggressive one at all.
Well, I think just by the fact that there's been so many different people from different walks of life that have seen something that they can't work out what it is, and it's hairy and it's standing on 2 legs and it's in the bush, in the Australian bush. And these sightings not only have happened historically but recently, so therefore, yeah, I think that there are some, they do a very good job of hiding themselves and very well adapted to their environment. Plus, the one I saw was completely black, so it can get around at night time and no one is going to see it unless it's going into a headlights of a car or something. Yeah, well, if you start researching, you see that there are creatures like this in every continent, and folklore in many countries about creatures like this. But I think that as people see things, that's when they really want to investigate these mysterious creatures. And I think that unless you are open in your mind to mysteries, then you probably won't look into this subject, but I definitely have, and it's quite interesting. In addition, historically, these mysterious creatures do not have a habit of hurting people. Their instinct is to freeze, to not be seen, or to hide and as quickly as possible. Many stories about amazing ways that they can camouflage themselves and disappear. So I think if the general public are not aware, it's probably the people who make decisions about these things probably look at the fact that people don't historically get hurt, so therefore let's not worry about it.
It didn't look much taller than me, but it was wide. It was 3 times as wide as me, and red, knotty, like dirty looking hair, except for its face and hands. I could see every speck of it clear as day. Its nostrils, its eyeballs, like its mouth, and yeah, it had a different coloured fur on its face and hands. And it was just flicking its wrist, just whipping this tree from side to side. Like, I thought maybe it had a family or something. It was trying to get my attention to it, away from its family. Or, I don't know, that's my theory, but it wanted to be seen. I don't understand why it wanted to be seen. This thing was that fast, you couldn't see it. It wasn't even a blur. It was just lightning fast. When it took off, it was just standing there straight on, eyeballing me. And then it just went, bang, gone. And all I could see was trees going, as it was moving that fast. It covered a lot of ground in no time, and then it was coming back around. There's no way I couldn't have even tried to shoot it if I wanted to. Like, you wouldn't have even got a shot at it, let alone try and take a picture of it. There's no way. And if it, for whatever reason, it shook the tree to get my attention, if it didn't do that, I would have never known it was there. So you'd never just sneak up and get a picture of one. Not a hope. You'd never even get a shot at one. That's why no one's ever shot one or taken a photo. I've tried setting up trail cams and stuff like that, but they reckon the infrared, they can sense the infrared on them, and they don't come near them. But yeah, I've never had any luck. But this was right in front of me, like probably 20 metres away on a slash paddock. I had my lights on it. Like, there was no mistaking what this was. Like, every speck of every hair, everything about it, I could see every detail. It was just eyeballing me. There's definitely no mistaking what I've seen.
100%. I've had rocks thrown at us constantly. I've been given gifts and left gifts, and all these footprints in front of us are less than probably a week old, a lot of these. They're definitely out there. There's sightings coming in all the time. People are seeing these creatures. These footprints are from Kilcoy area. They're very, very recent. This one here, the largest one, is only about 2 days old. It's got 6 toes. And then we have these other footprints. What's unusual about these, once again, they've got 6 toes, and they're all found in the general area. It runs on a creek that's a corridor between 2 bushland areas. So I would say they've been using this area to travel through from one bush area to the other bush area. Also, this area is a good hunting area. I've picked up on trail cam wild deer and other animals, as well as other large predator animals that are out there, like wild dogs and dingoes. So there's definitely a food source there for them. If you notice these footprints, especially this one, it's very, very deep. Whatever made this was very heavy, not to mention it's 35 centimetres from here to here, just down the middle of the lane. And a lot of these other footprints are also very deep. This one's very deep. You can actually see the heels on a lot of them and the balls at the front. Some have a mild arch, some are flatter, and some have a deeper arch. Yeah, we've been given gifts by the Yowies. Generally they will give us glyphs made out of grass. They fold them in triangles. Triangles are very important to them, I don't know why. And they tie a knot in the top. I've got several of those. They've given us a kangaroo skull, stone tools, and I think there was a couple other different type of glyphs they've folded up out of pine leaves and given to me. I got at home. But this gift was left to me by them just outside of Kilcoy in another location. In this location, I went out there about 3 or 4 times, left pineapple for them. They threw a few rocks at us and all that. We've walked the trails, this one trail, numerous times. And on the day we're walking back, we had rocks thrown at us. And it's quite funny, as I was walking, I was looking at a pale-faced rosella ahead of me, and the Yowie actually threw a rock at it to scare it off. So we got further down the track, we could hear it in the bush, the crunching and the grunts and the thuds. We knew it was following us, which is quite normal. That's nothing to fear. And we got up to a point of a trail that I've walked past so many times before, and this was just sitting out in the open. It's it sort of looks like a fossilised pineapple. It's got crystals in it and actually glows under a torch. I've had this at the Queensland Museum. No one can tell me what it actually is. We don't know if it's a fossil, mineral, or whatever it is. It's very unique. The day after I got it, and I went back and we scoured that whole area for anything like this, and we could not find it. But yeah, it was pretty amazing.
So I actually was tracking and was trying to investigate lots of strange things and footprints out here in basically my backyard in this nature corridor easement, and which is surrounded by lots of rainforest and many hundreds and thousands of acres, all connected by rainforest and creeks. And I actually came up here on a September morning, first day of school holidays, 5 to 6, and I turned to my right and I looked to the far hill, which I always do, but then my eye was drawn to the closer hill, and there I saw something that looked exactly like a person. And I thought it was a person walking a dog. I've been here 12 years, I've only seen that once. The neighbour over the back here has 4 Alsatians, and I've seen him once with all 4 dogs. So I was looking for dogs walking around the person on the hill there, and there was no dog. So my brain was thinking, what is it, who is it? Because it had a clear head, shoulders, and the grass was covering it's below its waist. So it was right near the edge of the track. So I was hoping it would step out to the track so I could see the full body. However, it didn't. As I walked, I did not blink, and I walked for 15 or 20 seconds watching it, and it turned from looking at the bush and it turned to looking at me, and I could see it was black and hairy from head to toe, fingernails a whole lot, and it was slightly brown here and it's slightly grayer on the face. And then it did the strangest thing that a human wouldn't do. A human would either walk away from me or walk towards me. As I was walking to it, not blinking, it went down onto all fours and lowered itself so low in the grass there was no jumping, hopping movement. It had shoulders, long arms, and it went down to all fours and then went straight into the thickest lantana you've ever seen. So we'll take you up to that spot now. I'll show you where it went into the bush. So this is where the creature was standing, somewhere just along here. It wasn't on the track, so I couldn't see its legs because I was hoping it would walk onto the track. But it looked at me, it was facing this way, it looked at me, it saw me approaching and keep coming towards it faster and faster. So it turned after about 20 seconds, 30 seconds, it turned and it went down onto all fours and it went into that scrub. Now, that's highly irregular if that was a person. A person would have walked that way down the track or that way down the track. Instead, it went on all fours and got super low in the grass and went that way. And I came to this spot as quickly as I could, and I went down there trying to find it, and I could just see faint trail of which way it went, straight down there, and I haven't seen it since. This is where I found my very first footprint. It was a large barefoot footprint. I thought, that is strange. And what I saw was that it was crossing this track. And on the other side of the track, there was a large stone placed in the tree. And I thought, that's odd, that's some marker. And then I saw that down below in all that rainforest jungle, there was all sorts of snap trees and also A-frame artwork almost of broken limbs that have been placed in A-frames. And all through this bush there's sort of like humpy things made out of plants that seem to have areas where people or animals, creatures have been sleeping. There's no sign of any litter. Being a school teacher, I know that students leave litter if they're everywhere, chips and chocolate wrappers, but there's no sign of any litter, but there was sign of creatures being there. So then I expanded my exploration and investigation all through that side, all the rainforest through there and up that way, and found that there was markings and tracks all through this system, and I found up to 20 different large barefoot tracks all through the creeks and places. I like mysteries because they're interesting and they make you think, and if you have an open mind and you start investigating, it's just fun. And it seems like I had a mystery in my own backyard. So once I did start tracking and finding all these footprints through the creeks, I found one in particular that was the biggest of all, and I just couldn't actually fathom how much bigger than my foot it was until one day I had a friend here. We were looking through the creeks and I found a left foot and a right foot. He actually walked on one and I said, "What are you doing? You're walking right on it." And they were good enough in the mud enough, no grass and leaves, so that I could actually get my first plaster cast. The only plaster cast I've got, and so it's not very, I don't think it's thick enough, so it's broken. I had to splint it, but that is the size of the foot that I have got tracked many times, and that's the size of my foot. So he's a big boy.
Yeah, so why did I think they're getting more popular with no evidence? I think it's because the evidence is there, but it's although it's not concrete physical evidence like a body and stuff like that, people are seeing these creatures. There's more and more sightings, and there's also more and more camera captures which are showing these creatures, but they just haven't got anything like the Patterson film, not just yet anyway. I honestly think people do believe they exist, and I think it's only a matter of time before we prove it.
And if you think of the Great Dividing Range that goes right up the coast, that's what's behind us at Youngler National Park. There's so many, there's just so much land up there that no one's ever been in. Humans have never been in there. And some of it's like you'd be flat out even getting in there, that thick of rainforest and up and down, just steep waterfalls, stuff like that. There's places up there that people have never been. There could be heaps of them up there we wouldn't know. And there's plenty of pigs and, you know, kangaroos, and turkeys, all sorts of wildlife from there. There's fruit. They've got fresh water they don't need. I think they could be, but I don't think they intentionally want to be, or they don't mean harm. But I think if you got in between them and something else, or, you know, you're slightly intimidated them, or if I had to try to shoot it, it probably would have become dangerous. They've obviously got the capacity to be dangerous, the size and the strength of this thing. It was a guava tree, and like you run over one of them with a car and they don't snap for it. They're very strong and flexible, and this was just smashing it to the ground either side just by flicking its wrist. Like the strength and the size of this thing, yeah, they definitely could be dangerous, but I don't think they are naturally dangerous.
What do I think happened if the public came aware of Yowies? I think they'd be scared to go out in the bush, although there's a lot worse things around here than that. If you just look at my trail cam footage of the wild dogs that are out here, they are phenomenal. Like, they look like they're on steroids. Then I think there'd be an acceptance, but I think there'll also be chaos in a way, because it's going to open up a can of worms. What happens if someone shoots one because they're half human or half whatever? If they got human, did that person commit murder? Are they going to be protected as an animal? Do they have rights? I think there's a reason why the government do not want these creatures found, because it's all about money and they won't be able to clear bushland, and it's just going to create moral dilemmas.
I think the public's pretty aware of it already. The question is, what is a Yowie? You know, is it a physical being? Is it spiritual? You know, is it, you know, I mean, some people say they're interdimensional. You know,
I would say everyone thinks it's from Area 51
or something like that. You know, I think a lot of people know about it. It's part of. I think it's part of our culture, part of, what would I say, you know, like our urban legend. And that's the weirdest thing, you know. Just about every country, or just about every continent there is on Earth, there's a story of one of these creatures. You know, here in Australia, you know, Yowie, America, Bigfoot. You know, you got Sasquatch, you got the abominable snowman, you got, what was the Russian one called? The Russian one's called something as well. These are all ancient stories. These aren't things that have been made up recently. These are stories that go way back to, you know, the original First Nations of each and individual country. So, and it continues. So, I think a lot of people are aware of it. It's just, you know, they're very elusive creatures. And, there's a lot of stuff, even in what we do, that you know, just there's no explanation for it. We just don't understand it, you know, and I don't know if we'll ever will, to be honest.
I think they'd probably get a lot of idiots out there looking for them or hunting them, or, you know, like just trying to mess with them, or yeah, as people do, you know, we interfere with everything when we shouldn't. It's probably it's inevitable, I think, that we are gonna get the evidence sooner or later, because more and more people are out there looking for them, and there is more sightings and more contact sort of. But yeah, I don't know, the general public, you know, like townies and that, aren't the brightest, and they should stay out of the forest if that's what they're going to do. Like they will probably become dangerous. people like me that live out in the bush, we show respect for everything in the bush, and everything's got its place. But yeah, I don't think the general public would really accept it anyway. Even it doesn't matter what evidence you do get. Like I seen the footage from the AYR of the thermal of the two Bigfoot hiding behind, or the Yowies hiding behind the tree, and one of them leant out and picked up a rock or picked up something. But you can't fake thermal imagery. And that evidence right there is probably as good as you're going to get. Thermal image of two figures hiding behind a tree, huge figures. One of them leans out and grabs something right near the camp where they couldn't see him except for the thermal. That evidence right there confirms it for me as well. And a lot of people don't accept that. So, and no matter how good your video footage is, people think there are suits or there's photoshopping and all this crap. They just don't want to accept what is really there. They can't comprehend it, so they don't want to accept it, I suppose.
Well, this is the thing. I don't think when people don't want to deal with conflict or deal with anything that's too hard, we just don't talk about it and we turn our back and hope it goes away. And definitely, I think if more general public actually realised that there was things out in the Australian bush or in other countries, in national parks, then there would be big trouble for all sorts of things to do with logging, tourism, etc., camping, and people would be more fearful. And so it's probably, in a way, best that people don't know, and that's probably why it's not general knowledge.